Welcome back. Senators are closing in on what many see as a rebuke of President Trump over Saudi Arabia, with support growing for tougher action against the Saudis after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. On Tuesday, CIA Director Gina Haspel briefed lawmakers for the first time on the Khashoggi murder. Here's what some of the senators had to say about that.
I think we should have a thorough reexamination of our relationship with the Saudi government. That would be one of a number of strong steps we could take, but I think there's a broader menu than just that simple step.
We espouse American values all around the world, and to say that, well, no, they're going to buy some arms from us, and so, it's okay to kill a journalist sends exactly the wrong message about who we are as a country. And that's why you're seeing bipartisan support for somehow speaking to this.
Melissa, I'm going to start with you. Do you think this legislation from Congress and congressional action will amount to anything more than a public rebuke and a slap on the wrist for President Trump?
No, it is so hollow, and it's exactly like when the UN gets together and they condemn someone and then they have no way of following through and they don't do anything about it. They just stand out there and make a statement. This is very similar. If they wanted to do something, they could push for actual action like sanctions or, pulling back on the war in Yemen, various things, not going ahead with the arms sale. I think that they understand the dual relationship and the problem that we have with the enemy of my enemy. I mean, in the battle with Yemen, for example, it's a proxy war with Iran, and there is a possibly greater enemy. At the same time, you can't ignore the human rights abuses. So it's a really challenging issue, but what they're doing there is, political, pathetic, and hollow.
Well, that's very strong rhetoric.
Yeah.
So, Brian, Melissa mentioned sanctions. So, President Trump, there has been sanctions against 17 individuals involved in the killing of Khashoggi. Did those go far enough?
No, I don't think they've gone far enough. I do think from an economic standpoint, we need to look at what's going on with Saudi Arabia. And for one, we need to recognize that the dynamic has changed. Oil is not the same issue today that it was 20, 30 years ago. And I think we're still acting like Saudi Arabia is the Saudi Arabia 20, 30 years ago when it comes to oil. That's changed in part because the president has allowed us to use more of our natural resources, our oil resources. That's really helpful from a diplomacy standpoint. I'd like to see us realign our diplomacy with Saudi Arabia based on that real economic reality today, not the old reality.
Because we're also using our resources differently in this country, right? So we have more that we can generate at home, but our usage is also different too.
Yeah.
And that relationship, though, I think it goes back to what Melissa was saying. It really has to do with what we accomplish in the region on the ground.
Yeah,
right?
It's more about that than oil.
And the humanitarian crisis that we are watching unfold in Yemen is unlike any that we're seeing across the world probably in the last 20 years, 25 years. It's very troubling. People are starving to death. And so any type of pressure that you can apply in that situation, plus you have Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula that is massing on the ground too. And so we know that they are one of the biggest two threats right now in the region for American interests. So we have to be able to control our interests in Yemen. And I get it, but they're killing and destroying the lives of journalists all over the world.
And that isn't new,
yeah.
Right? And that's part of this. I'm glad that we're having these conversations. It's incredibly sad. I think it's important that we do. The war in Yemen has been going on for years, and we haven't cared much about it until this happened. I'm glad that we do. There's a little bit in terms of support for the war in Yemen in this bill, but generally I agree that it's pretty toothless, which makes me think that everyone actually should get on board and at least sign it to send a signal to President Trump that we need to be doing more than we have and that we shouldn't be making public statements like we have a really big arms deal with them and that's a good thing. You can't be sending that signal to people like MBS and others like him across the world that we will continue to do business with you even if you kill one of our own.
We've got to go, Jess.
Green card holder before people attack me. I know he's not American.
Okay. All right. We got to go.
Wow.
Well, new accusations against the Clinton Foundation. Congressman Mark Meadows citing whistleblowers who came forward with evidence suggesting wrongdoing. So what will this new information reveal? We'll discuss it next, so stay tuned.